What's going on YouTube? It's your buddy Technical Redneck, and today we're going to be talking about why you shouldn't be using Wink and why you should be making the switch to Home Assistant or HAS.io. Now, I'm going to go over a couple of things of why I made the switch, why I used to use Wink, but why I have decided to make the switch over to Home Assistant. So, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so a few weeks ago, everyone who subscribes to Wink or everyone who's using Wink started receiving emails saying that, oh, by the way, we're sorry, but we're going to start making you subscribe in order to use our service. Now, Wink was sold with the idea that you paid for the hub and you paid for some of the various devices like this, that you then got to use everything for free and everything was nice and easy, and they even had an app that would work and you could integrate everything with and you could operate it from anywhere in the world. This is how it was sold to most people. But all of a sudden they decided, well, you know, even though everything hasn't been working the best as of late, and by not working the best, what I mean is the Wink would magically disconnect itself from the internet or from their cloud, and things wouldn't work for a couple of days. And then magically everything would start working again. This started happening about a year or two ago, and it would happen every once in a while, maybe once every 6 months or something, and just magically quit working. So even then, though, I said, well, you know, there's really no alternative. I'll just keep using the Wink hub. But again, like I said, up until a couple of weeks ago when they basically said, if you want to keep using this, you've got 1 week to subscribe and start paying us $5 a month, or this is going to be rendered a paperweight, and it'll no longer work, and we're going to shut your service off. Okay, well, and I looked at some of the reviews from some of the other Wink patrons, and they all said the same thing that I said, which was, well, if that's the attitude you're going to have about it, forget you, I'll do something else. So I started doing research and I started trying to figure out, okay, what could I use that will be similar to this and still keep me up and running, but that's free. And the response heard around the world was Home Assistant. It was very loud and it was very clear that Home Assistant was the way to go. Now, what I'm holding in my hand is a Raspberry Pi 4. That I have installed Home Assistant on. Home Assistant is an open source software created by a few people, or maybe it's just one guy that or gal that I'm not sure about just yet, but at any rate, it's very well supported. People that use it support and help each other. It's crowd funded at the moment. Through donations. They do accept donations, but they also have their own cloud service called Nabu Casa, and I hope I'm saying that right. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But through it, you can pay, you guessed it, $5 a month to access this from anywhere in the world. Now, you don't need that, right? You can use this without the cloud service at home. You can access it while you're at your home for free, no problem. Now, there are a couple of caveats, and there's a couple of things that you need to make this work with some of the other devices that you see here, things that you used to have that worked with this. And there's a couple of things that you need to understand. The Wink hub has a built-in Zigbee and Z-Wave antenna. Now, what is Zigbee and what is Z-Wave? Zigbee and Z-Wave are just protocols or nodes, if you will, that are used to communicate these and connect these devices to this hub and to various other hubs. So this light bulb, for example, this light bulb has built-in Wi-Fi. What this allows you to do is through Zigbee, through the Zigbee protocol, it connects this to this, okay? So that they can communicate. It doesn't just do that with Wi-Fi. Like I said, it uses the Zigbee protocol. Now, You take something else, for instance, like the door lock that I have downstairs. I've got a Slage door lock. That communicates with the Z-Wave protocol. The Z-Wave protocol acts very similar to the Zigbee protocol. It connects, it allows that door lock device to talk to the hub that I'm using, right? Again, I'm no longer using this hub. I've switched everything over to Home Assistant. But you're saying, well, Technical Redneck, how did you switch from this to this? Does the Raspberry Pi have a built-in antenna for Zigbee and Z-Wave? No. That's where this little doodad comes in. So I ordered this off of Amazon. I also ordered this off of Amazon. But with this USB stick, this acts as the antenna or hub that this used to service for the communication portion of the devices that are Zigbee and Z-Wave. Okay? This has both Zigbee and Z-Wave antennas built into it. All I have to do with this is plug it into my Raspberry Pi, and then magically I set up a couple of things with it, and I'll be showing that in another video. But I plug this in, and then I can communicate with all of my light bulbs that I had around the house that I used to be able to use this for. All of my light bulbs, all of my motion sensors that I have, and all of my smart plugs. I use various devices to control and set up different automations in my house. So I have smart plugs that either turn on or off a TV. Obviously, the lights I use to turn on and off in various areas of the house, but also outside. So if I'm not home, I can have this set up and an automation set up so that when the sun goes down, no matter what time of year, it keeps up with when the sun rises and when the sun goes down, and Home Assistant is great at this, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But it will turn this on and turn this off. So it'll turn it on when the sun goes down, it'll turn it off when the sun comes up. So I'm not wasting any electricity, right? The other beautiful thing about this is Home Assistant gives you the option and freedom to be able to set these things up to do whatever you want to do. This thing, I can't say enough good things about Home Assistant. Real big kudos goes out to the people who developed Home Assistant. One of the things that I learned about this was how hindered I was by this other device, right? Home Assistant, when I plugged it in, it started searching my network looking for other devices that communicated or that had information that it could use. Prime example is I've got a printer over here that I've had for 6 or 7 years, had no idea that the printer had the ability to tell me and notify me when the printer ink gets low. But the printer has that built-in functionality. Didn't know until I plugged in Home Assistant, my Raspberry Pi running Home Assistant. I also learned about a couple other cool ideas and cool things out there. I can take a motion sensor that's got a 4-in-1 sensor built into that. Now what that means is that this sensor not only detects motion, but it also detects the amount of light that it sees. It detects temperature and relative humidity. These are all very useful things, like if you have a basement and you want to make sure that the basement doesn't get too humid in the summer, but you don't want to run the air conditioner all year round just to avoid using unnecessary electricity, right? Well, I can use this to control that at my house. If the humidity gets above a certain set point, I can have the AC kick on and have it cool it down and reduce the humidity in the basement to a set point of whatever I choose. So it gives me an option to be able to take different connected devices in my home and make them do many, many, many different things. And again, I can't say enough good things about Home Assistant. Home Assistant gives you the option to combine all of your smart devices in one location, and I do mean all. I can connect my Ring stuff to this. I can connect my Honeywell thermostats to this. I can connect my GE light bulbs to this. And they don't even make these light bulbs anymore. That's how old these light bulbs are. But Home Assistant recognizes them. All because of, mainly in part due to Home Assistant, but also due to the USB stick that I have that broadcasts the signal and listens for these devices. Again, these devices and the options are endless. You get some of these smart plugs, right? And the smart plug can detect the amount of energy usage and report that back to you via Home Assistant. So again, I want to send a big thank you to the people in Home Assistant for doing the work that they do and for keeping it going. I have no problem giving money to people who actually support their products and want to see people succeed and help them to learn a little bit more about what's going on in their home. And Home Assistant does that. You don't need to be some computer genius to work Home Assistant and figure it out, and we'll go over that here a little bit later. But you do need to have a little bit of level of comfort with computers. And again, if you have any questions, there's a huge group of people, there's a huge Home Assistant community, or HASS.io as we call it. There's a huge community that is full of people who are more than willing to help with any questions that you have. And it's one of those where no question is a stupid question. So feel free to ask any questions that you have. Feel free to ask me questions in the comments below. I'll respond as best as I can. I'm going to be honest with you. If I don't know the answer to the question, I'll point you in the direction of a place where you can find the right answer. And I'll let you know that I don't know. Now that we've gone through that, let's get over to the computer aspect of it, and I'll give you a breakdown of what the main screen looks like on Home Assistant.
Okay, now that we're in front of the computer, we can pull up Home Assistant. So Home Assistant by default is the way that you access it is via the web UI, and it's, again, by default, it's homeassistant.local with an 8123 port address. So this is the basic home layout. As you can see, I've got my Ring cameras attached to it. Now, one thing that it will not do is it will not show you the live feed. And it tells you that up front when you set up your Ring devices here. It does give you the warning and say, look, you know, Ring doesn't allow this. You're not going to be able to do that. But what it will do is it'll show you whatever the last instance was that it recorded, which is still very useful. Here I can see if someone's watching the media server. Right now, obviously, no one's watching that. It gives me the weather here in my hometown. And then I've got this displaying, so it tells me what the percentage of battery life left is on my iPhone. And Home Assistant gives you the opportunity to set up instances based on various triggers. And triggers such as if my iPhone gets down to, say, 25%, then I have some lights in the house. Depending on where I'm at in the house, they will flicker, right? And so it'll come on and off and on and off and things like that to warn me and let me know that my iPhone's getting low. Now, I know that seems kind of trivial to some people, but that's just an example of what Home Assistant can do. And the abilities are endless, really. I mean, it's whatever your imagination can come up with. There's been people who have done some very interesting things. I've seen one where someone set up a door sensor, a window door sensor on a pantry, and every time the pantry was opened, it would notify him or his wife that someone had entered the pantry. Now, again, that may seem like, well, you know, why would you do that? Well, if you need to know if your kids are raiding the pantry late at night, you know, and you don't want that to happen, there's an option. So Home Assistant gives you a lot of these abilities, and I also have the option to, as you can see here, I can show you, I can see where my iPhone is. So if I leave my iPhone somewhere, I have the ability to log into Home Assistant, and it can tell me where my iPhone is. Here I have my thermostats. I've got the thermostat in the living room, and these are Honeywell thermostats. They're Wi-Fi connected. My thermostat in the living room, you can see the setting is 83, and right now it's 73 in the living room. Now I can easily make this, I can easily change it from Home Assistant, and it communicates with the Honeywell app just fine, and everything updates. So if I change it here, then it updates and it shows me that change reflected in the Honeywell app if I decide to use it instead for some odd reason. And then here's the one in the master bedroom as well. So, again, it tells you what the current temperature is and then what the set point is there. Moving on up here, you have the opportunity to put like these little dots here, and it gives you some generalized information. Again, I've got my iPhone battery status here. This one seems a little trivial, but it's interesting because it allows you to do a lot, right? So I have some of my lights turn on when the sun goes down, right, and come on when the sun comes up. And you say, okay, well, I can do that. I could set it. How is that any different than setting it with a time, right? Well, we, thanks to daylight savings time and whatnot, the time that the sun goes down and that it comes up changes regularly. Well, in the rotation of the Earth, of course, it's not just daylight savings time. But anyway, it changes regularly. So to avoid having them on or off when they don't need to be, then I can set it up so that it goes by sunrise and sunset rather than a time frame. But this is also good if you're worried about, like if you're not at home or something and you're worried about people maybe breaking into your home. Because the time changes that it turns on and it turns off, it makes people, it gives the illusion that you're still at home. So here, the sensor that I showed you earlier in the video, this is what's being displayed on it. So it tells me what the temperature is here in my computer room, which currently is 78.6 degrees. And it also gives me a trend. So I can click on it and I can look back at the history and see what that historical trend is. As you can see, it was a little bit cooler this morning, and as the day has gone on, because we're moving into summer, it's warmed up. Now, I've got the same thing with relative humidity. Again, the humidity was a little bit higher because I slept with the windows open last night, and as the day has gone on, the humidity has dropped. And there goes my ring in the background making noise. So I've also got the thermostat set up here, and again, it does the same thing. You can see the trends in the background, and it tells you what the target temperature is and what the current temperature is and what the state of the thermostat is. So right now, the thermostat upstairs is cooling, and the air conditioner's on. So what are some of the other things you can do with this? Well, it's nice. You can really set this up to do whatever you want to do and to display whatever you'd like to display. Here I've got lights that turn on. I can turn them on and turn them off with this. By the way, there's also a iPhone and Android phone app that you can use, and it works great. I have had no issues with it whatsoever. But if you do want to modify some of these things and you want to add a few different items, they give you some kind of presets. So here you've got like an alarm panel. If your alarm is connected, then you can set that up there. I do have a Ring alarm. However, it does not integrate with Home Assistant just yet. I believe that's something they're working on, but it doesn't integrate just yet. And while I don't have the card open because it displays some personal information that I don't want displayed on here, I was very surprised at the amount of information that the iPhone actually shows. It displays a surprising amount of information. Everything from pedometer information, how many floors you've climbed, how many floors you've descended, and the number of steps you've taken, and what the last known location of your iPhone was. And again, all of this gets shared either from iCloud or from the app itself, from the Home Assistant app. So Here you can have the map up, and again, that uses your iPhone or whatever device you choose to have that to display where you are in the world. The other nice thing is you can actually set up a little diagram of your house, and you can put the various devices in there and then be able to control it that way. I haven't played around too much with this yet, but I plan on it in the future. If that's something you guys are interested in, let me know in the comments, and that's something that I can work on. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff here that you can add. We're not going to go over all of it. Again, I mean, you can do shopping lists. There's all kinds of integrations. The other important thing, what I was talking about you have to have a little bit of knowledge when it comes to using this. So there is a file editor, and this is an add-on that I've added to my bar over here, and one of the files that you have to add is what's called the configuration.yaml file. Now, YAML code is very simple. You don't need to know a whole lot about programming or anything, or much at all, to be able to work in YAML. YAML is essentially human speak for coding, and what that means is what you would do, let's see, you would type something like, here's my host, and then the provider, username, password, and then you're done, right? It's that simple. So the provider would be like Honeywell, and the username would be, whatever your username would be, and then you would type in your password. Now, you don't have to use your passwords, because you don't want this stuff readily available to average people. So what you can do is you can put your passwords in a file called secrets, and then you can call those in the configuration file without having to actually type out your password. So you do get that extra layer of protection there. And there's information in the chat rooms and in the help logs on Home Assistant's website that talk about that. A lot of people have talked about that, and again, there's a lot of useful information there. I have a terminal here. I don't ever really have to use the terminal. When I was first learning this, I did use some of this, and I'm an old school Linux type of guy, so for me, having terminal access is nice. It's just something that I like to have. You go to Developer Tools, and again, here's some info on Home Assistant, the version that you have, some of the basic information. Let's see, Supervisor. Here you can do add-ons. So there are a lot of add-ons in the store that you can add to Home Assistant itself. You've got AdGuard here, which will help block ads and allows you to set up a DNS server through Home Assistant. I don't actually need this because I've got my own DNS server that's running in the background and taking care of that for me. You can set up a simple DHCP server. Again, I don't need this because I'm running pfSense, and it's handling all my firewall and DHCP services. But you've got a lot here that people contribute. Again, this is a very large community. There's a lot of people that are more than willing to help and answer any questions that you may have. I'm also one of those people. I contribute to Home Assistant as much as I can just to keep it up and going. Again, there are people who put this together and don't charge anything other than if you want to be able to use it away from your home and access it over the internet. So I like to support these people every way I can in order to keep the updates coming and keep this service running. Okay, under configuration, there's not a whole lot to see there. It just shows you kind of like who's logged in, and I'm not going to show that right now because it shows my email address, and I don't care for some of that information to get out there. But Then you have notifications where it shows new things that have come in, new items that it's recognized. And that pretty much sums it up. There's a lot that Home Assistant can do. I'm barely scratching the surface of some of its abilities. There's a lot of different animations and automations that you can have it do. Using the sensor that I have here, I can have lights turn on and my Echo Dot tell me, good morning and what the weather is for the day and my calendar and whatnot. And all of that based off of a motion sensor using Home Assistant. So I hope this video has been helpful. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. If you guys like the video, let me know. I'll publish some more like this. Subscribe if you are interested in this type of thing. And I hope everyone's doing well, hunkered down in these trying times that we're having. This is Technical Redneck signing off. I'll see you guys on the next one.